I built the company on my own, but my biological daughter came home with a stranger, demanding that I hand the company over to her fiancé. She said, "If you don't agree, then you don't deserve to be my mother." In that moment I wondered, was she the one who had lost her mind, or was it me finally seeing things for what they really were? They thought I would blindly fall into the trap they had set, but what they didn't realize was who the real prey was in this game. I started my business from scratch, and while my husband criticized me for being too dominant, he ran off with another, gentler woman to live abroad. He left me alone, with my right hand managing the company's finances and my left hand feeding my daughter, Avery. Avery never had to struggle. By the time she started remembering things, I was already among the wealthiest women in the country, and Avery had become the attention-grabbing daughter of a wealthy family. She went to the best private schools, her grades were always top-notch, until one semester when I was called into school, only to discover that those grades had been bought. She had bribed vulnerable students to take her exams for her. After the college entrance exams, she used the exorbitant donations I made to the school to study abroad. She wrote me letters every month, crying about how she didn't have enough for living expenses. In the end, I found out she had spent all the money on partying and living it up. I always thought she was young, that she would grow up and become more mature. But today she surprised me again. As I was explaining the quarterly profit fluctuations in the boardroom, the door suddenly swung open. At that moment the glass door clicked shut, interrupting my speech. The air seemed to freeze for a second. I turned around and there she was, Avery, standing at the door in a beige trench coat, her makeup flawless, holding hands with a man. Yes, holding hands. Her wrist rested lightly on his arm, and the man, clean-shaven with a perfectly groomed face, looked like one of those TV doctor leads, or maybe a personal trainer you'd see at the gym. He had his head lowered, seemingly unwilling to look anyone in the eye, and silently followed Avery into the room. I froze for 2 seconds. The board members were equally stunned, except for Jacob, who raised an eyebrow from his seat by the window as if sensing some drama. "Hi, everyone," Avery greeted, her voice casual as though she had stumbled into the wrong party. "I know you're all busy, but I'm here to announce something important." I could feel the nerve at the back of my head tighten. "Avery," I set the microphone down, trying to keep my tone steady, "this is not the place for you to barge in." I know, she said, walking toward me with a smile that made it clear she had no intention of taking me seriously. "But this is too important, and I don't want to wait until the afternoon." She gently tugged at the man's arm. "This is James, my fiancé." I heard a sharp intake of breath from the female legal director across the table. "We've already discussed it," Avery continued, her voice full of that "I've made up my mind" certainty. "He will start as the marketing director and gradually get familiar with the company's operations. Eventually, I want him to take over with me." The room fell into an awkward silence. I stared at her, forcing myself not to stand up and explode. My fingers lightly tapped the armrest of my chair. "Avery, this is not something you can decide. We're in a meeting." "Mom," she softened her tone, almost a bit whiny with an edge of impatience. "Didn't you say you wanted me to get more involved with the company?" "Well, now I've found the right person." I looked at James. He stood there, still silent. He simply nodded at me, offering a polite smile, like he was greeting some irrelevant guest. I couldn't help myself. "Mr. James, do you know what the marketing director position entails?" He smiled slightly but still didn't say a word. "Avery, if you want to be involved in the company, fine. But you can't treat it like a wedding gift." I kept my tone even, but each word felt like a nail being hammered down. "Your father left when I was 30. I raised both you and this company on my own, not so you could waltz in here with a stranger and take control of my hard work." Her expression shifted, but she quickly recovered. "Stranger? Mom, how can you say that?" I stood up, my voice clear and calm. "Jacob, take everyone out. The meeting is paused." Jacob nodded and immediately got up, while the other board members quietly gathered their papers and left. Some threw Avery a furtive glance, while others took the side door, avoiding the scene. No one wanted to get involved. The door clicked shut behind them, leaving just the three of us in the room. Avery threw her bag down, her smile finally fading. "You never planned for me to take over, did you? You've been keeping me out all along, haven't you?" "This company is under my control," I said coldly, giving her a hard look. "I have the right to veto any personnel decisions. Your getting married is your business, But don't think you can use my company's resources as your dowry. You're just afraid I'll be happy. Her voice rose. You failed in your marriage and now you want to drag me down with you, don't you? James finally placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, as though trying to remind her to calm down. I took a deep breath, not wanting to continue this pointless argument. I reached for the meeting documents on the table. You can leave now. Avery glared at me, her face turning red. You'll regret this. I didn't respond. She slammed the door behind her, her high heels clacking loudly on the floor. I sat back down in my chair, closing my eyes for a moment. The meeting documents slipped off the table and fluttered for 2 pages, as if sighing with me. I picked up the phone and dialed the direct line. Security, please update the access control list immediately. Avery and James, suspend their access to the board area until further notice. There was a brief pause on the other end, then a steady male voice responded. Understood, Ms. Grace. I hung up the phone, leaning back in my chair. As I closed my eyes, I felt a sharp pulse in my temples. Avery didn't seem ready to give up. A few days later, she sent me a simple message. Mom, let's talk. Noon today at your favorite Italian restaurant. I stared at the message for a long time. She hadn't tried to contact me in the past 3 days. No calls, no texts, no movement on social media. For Avery, this was about as silent treatment as it gets. She's always been the kind of girl who wants the whole world to know when she's angry. I wasn't planning to respond. But that morning when I opened my email, a subscription notification that I hadn't deleted popped up. The subject line was from a mental health platform. Don't misunderstand your daughter. Some kids just haven't found the right way to express themselves. I closed the email and stared out the window, lost in thought. Half an hour later I replied. See you at 12. The restaurant she chose was an upscale Italian chain in downtown, designed like one of those Instagram mom and daughter tea spots. I've never liked places like this. Too bright, too cramped, too pretentious. When I pushed open the door, Avery was already sitting at a windowside table, holding the menu like she knew exactly what she was doing. Sunlight fell on her face, making her perfectly made-up features seem almost too perfect, too polished, too unlike her. She smiled and waved at me as if nothing had happened. You seem much calmer than a few days ago, I said, sitting down across from her and taking off my sunglasses. Because I really didn't plan on arguing with you. She stirred her strawberry soda, her nails glinting in the light. I just think there are a lot of things between us that need to be said. She wore what looked like a simple silk shirt, but the price tag would never be under 4 figures. Her face looked composed and intellectual. Only I knew that her fresh from the boardroom look was a facade for how out of control her life had become lately. The day we fought, I had canceled all her credit cards. She'd never been good with money, and there was no way she had much savings left. I didn't order a drink. I simply picked up the menu, flipped through it briefly and put it down again. Go ahead. She smiled, pushing a folder toward me. James and I are working on a new project. I didn't reach for the folder. She opened it herself like she was pitching an investment. We're planning a dating platform aimed at Gen Z. It integrates behavioral data and semantic recognition to determine matching accuracy. This is a completely untapped market. I waited for her to finish before I spoke slowly. Do you think I'd be interested in this? Of course you'd be interested, her eyes lit up. Mom, you were one of the first AI investors in the tech world. I know you always have an eye for the next big thing. I only invest in people who actually know what they're doing, I said flatly. Avery bit her lip, fell silent for a second, and then tried to regain her composure. James has a tech background. He studied computer science in Canada. He didn't graduate, but he has hands-on experience. She turned to a page in the resume, trying to show me something she called real experience. I took the resume, looked at it for a few seconds, and then spoke the first words. This resume is fake. She suddenly looked up, eyes wide. What did you say? I stared at her. James has used at least 3 different names since 2011. He was involved in 2 financial fraud cases in Vancouver, though he wasn't convicted due to lack of evidence. His police record is still on file. His second name, John Harris, was even linked to a scholarship fraud case at a university in eastern Canada back in 2008. Her face drained of color. He's not the hardship-turned-success story you think he is, I said slowly. He's a professional conman and his specialty is swindling women out of their money. You investigated him? Her voice rose sharply. Yes, I did. I didn't shy away. She slammed her hand on the table and stood up. You have no right to do this. I'm your mother. I stood up too, my voice lower but stronger. The moment you brought him into the boardroom, I had every right. Her breath became shallow, her eyes reddening. You've never trusted me. Whatever decision I make, you never support it. I stared at her in silence. Then she laughed, bitterly, almost self-mockingly, for a few seconds before grinding her teeth and saying, You're a failure at marriage, of course. You want me to be lonely too. You don't know what love is. You only know how to control. You want me to listen to you? To agree with you? Her voice became more choked. As long as I follow your path, as long as I'm as cold-hearted as you, that's all you care about, isn't it? I finally reached for the folder on the table, standing up. You can choose whatever you want, that's your freedom. But if you expect me to fund a project with someone I know is a fraud, this is not love, Avery. This is enabling. I let my tone shift, tinged with disappointment for the first time. You don't not understand, you just don't want to face it. You're using love to prove that you're not a failure, but at the cost of destroying the future I've built for you. She said nothing. As I turned to leave, I heard the soft clink of her glass cup hitting the table. I didn't look back. When I stepped out of the restaurant, the sunlight was almost blinding. My phone buzzed once. It was a text from Jacob. James's Canadian record has been confirmed, along with some photos. Do we need to contact the authorities to file a formal report? I stared at the screen for 10 seconds. I didn't reply. I knew the timing wasn't right yet. She hasn't woken up. When I got home that day, Maya was squatting at the kitchen door, holding a green onion in one hand and a pack of chicken legs in the other, trying to balance them so they wouldn't fall out of the paper bag. She heard the door, turned around and gave me a smile. Grace, you're home early. I didn't feel like going into the office today. I hung my coat by the door. What are you making? Chicken soup. She gently placed the ingredients in the sink, her movements calm and efficient. It's getting colder. You should have some soup. You coughed a couple times last night. I coughed. I raised an eyebrow. 3 a.m. 12 minutes passed. I couldn't help but laugh. You even remember the exact time? You coughed like a flare going off. She shrugged, then bent down to slice some ginger. Maya was the daughter of my former driver. Her parents died in a car accident and no relatives wanted to take her in, so I raised her myself. She was smart, sharp, and had always done well in school. Over the years, I had invested as much in Maya as I had in Avery. In that moment, I felt the house quieter than it had been in months. A gentle silence, without judgment, without conflict. It made me instinctively take a deep breath. Before I could finish, the doorbell rang. I instinctively thought it was Jacob bringing documents, but when I opened the door, it was Avery standing there, followed by James. My chest tightened, a prickling sensation like a needle. Before I could react, Avery marched in, her 3-inch heels clicking loudly. James stood behind her, neither stopping her nor saying a word. What's this about? Avery marched into the kitchen, her eyes locking onto Maya. Is she part of your family now? Maya hadn't even had time to take off her apron, and when she looked up, her face was full of confusion. Avery? Stop playing the good girl. You've been waiting for me to leave, haven't you? I didn't. Maya took a step back. I immediately walked over, standing between her and Avery. Enough, Avery. Calm down. But Avery was completely out of control now. The next second she raised her hand and slapped Maya hard across the face. The sound echoed against the kitchen tiles for a solid 3 seconds. Maya was completely caught off guard. Half of her face turned red instantly and her eyes welled up, but she stood there, biting her lip, silent. You little gold digger. You think now that I'm out you can take my place, don't you? Avery's voice dripped with venom. I couldn't take it anymore. My hand raised almost instinctively and slapped Avery across the face. It was louder than hers. She froze, hand on her cheek, staring at me in disbelief. I looked at her, my voice low but steady. You don't deserve to be part of this family. That includes the position you once had. You slapped me. She muttered. You slapped me for her. I didn't do it for her. I said slowly. I did it so you'd understand where the boundaries lie. At that moment, the kitchen door sensor beeped and I heard the door being pushed open. Only then did I realize someone was filming. It wasn't a reporter. It was a young neighbor from across the street, standing there with a phone in hand, looking like he'd just hit the jackpot. I closed my eyes for a moment, knowing this was inevitable. There was no escaping the public opinion now. James finally spoke up. "Avery, let's go." She turned, her gaze sweeping from my face to Maya's, and finally landing on the coat James was holding in his hand. She didn't speak, just pushed the door open and walked out step by step. Before she left, she turned and threw one last line, "You'll all regret this." The door slammed shut. Maya stood there, her fingers still trembling slightly. I walked over to her, looking at the red mark on her cheek, and picked up a damp towel. "Let me see." She shook her head. "It's fine." "You're not fine." I gently held her wrist, my voice softening. "You shouldn't have had to take this." She lowered her eyes, and after a long silence she spoke, "I didn't take her place." "I know." I paused. "But she won't admit that she lost it herself." That evening, less than an hour after the video was uploaded to social media, it went viral. The headlines grew more sensational with each click. Tech queen slaps daughter over adopted daughter's interference. Family inheritance drama escalates. Rich family feud. Who's really Grace's heir? I stared at the comments, refreshing the page quietly, waiting for Jacob's legal response plan. One new comment popped up. "Actually, I'm with Grace. That girl needed a lesson." I tapped the power button at the top right corner of the screen, making it go completely black. Then I opened my phone contacts, scrolled all the way to the bottom, and found the contact labeled Avery. Communication paused. I stared at the parentheses for a long time. In the end, I didn't change it. Today, Avery had finally made me realize one thing. Some mother-daughter relationships don't break. They just come to a point where she chooses to jump off the train of my life. And I wouldn't stop the entire train for someone who jumped off. The next morning, before I could even fully wake up, my phone buzzed. The vibration rattled on the nightstand, and I picked it up to see a message from Maya. "You'd better not check social media." I frowned and opened Twitter. The first post that caught my eye was accompanied by a video of the front of my house. Avery, with disheveled hair, standing at my doorstep. She was holding a phone, crying and shouting at the camera. "Do you know who my mom is? She's Grace, a woman who values inheritance over blood. She kicked me out and brought in an adopted daughter who's not even family." The comments were a whirlwind, some supporting her, others blasting the rich girl's self-scripted drama. "Beating your daughter is wrong, but after seeing that video I almost want to slap her too. Grace may be cold, but she's got business sense, unlike her love-struck daughter." I sat on the edge of the bed, watching the messages pop up one after another, like an electric saw cutting into the last remnants of my patience. Maya entered with breakfast, hesitated at the doorway, and asked softly, "Want some coffee?" "Just set it down." I put my phone down, threw the covers off, and sat up straight. My throat tightened and my fingers felt frozen, stiffly clutching the edge of my phone. "Is she out of her mind?" I muttered. Maya didn't respond. She just placed the breakfast in front of me and sat quietly, waiting for me to calm down. The office was in chaos that day. Jacob barged into my office, slamming a draft of an urgent statement onto my desk. "Our PR team is handling the trending topic, but you need to respond immediately, or we'll have to start legal action." I glanced at the document, threw it on the table, and said flatly, "No response. Grace, the entire social network is turning you into the cold mother who abandoned her daughter. And Avery?" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "She's playing the emotional card, and the public will likely side with her for now. She's no longer the heir to our company," I said firmly. Jacob was quiet for a moment. "So, do you want us to prepare an official statement?" I stared out the window at the outline of Boston Bay, the dark clouds in the distance looking ready to burst with rain. "Go ahead," I said. "If she wants to sever ties with the family publicly, then I can do the same." That afternoon I held a closed-door board meeting. We confirmed the issue of succession. In front of the lawyers, I officially revoked Avery's inheritance rights and added Maya to the list of potential heirs. As I signed the document, I saw one of the female board members sigh quietly. Her daughter was about the same age as Avery and had interned at the company before deciding to open a home decor business in Chicago. She had once said to me, "Our generation tried too hard to control things and ended up being the stumbling block to their freedom." I didn't respond. Because I knew, I hadn't denied her freedom. I had given her too much, and in doing so she had thrown away all responsibility and respect. That evening Maya helped me pack Avery's room. She moved gently as though afraid of waking something she wasn't ready to face. I stood by the door, watching as the light and scent that had always filled the room slowly faded away. On the bedside table there was a puzzle box, Avery's 14th birthday gift from me. We spent 3 weekends finishing the puzzle of the Boston skyline. Maya opened the closet and a cardboard box fell out, landing with a dull thud. When she bent to pick it up, she stopped suddenly. Should we pack this too? She carefully picked up a photograph. I walked over. It was an old picture. Avery was still in elementary school, her hair tied in a high ponytail, her smile radiating like sunshine through a glass bottle. One hand was flashing a V sign, and the other was around a short-haired girl, thin and wearing glasses, smiling softly and shyly. Maya stared at the photo for a while, then said in a quiet voice, "I swear this girl looks so familiar." I paused for a moment, didn't answer her, and simply pulled the photo out. "Keep this one. The rest, pack it up and send it away." He nodded, not asking why. As I walked out, I heard the sound of Maya peeling off the tape with a sharp snap, sealing that old memory inside a box. Maya had been acting a bit unsettled these past few days. She didn't say anything, but I noticed that her phone was always on silent beside her, and she kept glancing out the window while working. She was usually the type of girl who kept her composure, so when she started showing signs of alertness, I knew she had discovered something. She just didn't know how to tell me. It wasn't until Friday evening that she knocked on my office door holding a notebook. "Grace, can I talk to you for a few minutes?" I nodded and she walked in, gently placing the notebook in front of me. "I didn't mean to snoop." Her voice sounded a bit tense, but the other day her bag got knocked over outside the door by the wind. I was just helping her pick it up and then I found a piece of paper inside it. I opened the notebook and saw a crumpled piece of paper with a few words and numbers written in blue ink. 2008 Canada fraud case? I stared at the words, my heartbeat slowing for a moment. J.H. John Harris. The identity James had used in Canada. I looked up at Maya, who clearly didn't want to make any assumptions. "Do you think Avery is investigating him?" "Maybe." She sat down, her voice lower than usual. Her attitude toward James has been strange lately. Last week I saw her sitting in the car, not moving, just staring at her phone for over an hour. I held the piece of paper, my mind racing through the questions and fragments of doubt I'd had over the past few years. I had thought she'd been completely brainwashed. But now for the first time I wondered, had she always known? Had she just been waiting for the right moment? Before I could process the thought, Maya came to me the next morning holding a recording. "Last night I followed them to that Italian bar in South End." "By yourself?" I frowned. "I stayed on the outdoor patio. They didn't see me." She pushed her phone in front of me. "I recorded it." I pressed play and the bar's ambient noise filled the room. Glasses clinking, murmurs, the sharp sound of ice cubes being dropped into glasses, and then James's low, angry voice. "I told you what to do. She's your mother, the big boss, and you can't even get $80,000. Then Avery's voice, hoarse and tired. "I've tried. She's not the same anymore, James." "Of course she's not the same. Look at how she's spoiled that adopted daughter. We don't have much time. If you keep dragging this out, I'm going to find someone else." The recording abruptly stopped. I stared at the phone screen as though I could see the trap James had been weaving all along. I closed my eyes, hit pause. "You weren't discovered?" Maya nodded. "I didn't go inside. I just thought something was really off." I didn't respond, instead walking to the window. The shadows of trees in Boston Common were swaying slightly in the autumn breeze. James hadn't just appeared out of nowhere. He was invited. He picked Avery because her background was clean, her family wealthy, and her emotional vulnerabilities obvious. He looked like a professional con artist, and Avery's heart? It was the vault he most knew how to crack. In the afternoon I went down to the basement archives and pulled out an old case file from 3 years ago. It was a report I had anonymously sent to the FBI's anti-fraud division about a girl named Lily, one of Avery's childhood friends, the other girl in the photo. Lily had studied at a university in Vancouver, but later fell into debt through online loans and ended up committing suicide. Before her death, she had been dating a man named John Harris. That man, aside from having multiple identities and evading investigation, had left little evidence behind. I had noted the case simply because I overheard Avery mention Lily's name once. She had said, "She was my best friend." I hadn't thought much of it then. But now, everything clicked together like pieces of a broken puzzle. I knew James hadn't just deceived Avery. He had also deceived the person Avery trusted the most, Lily. I sat back at my desk and texted Jacob. "Starting tomorrow, arrange for me to meet with the anti-fraud team contact. I need to update that report from 3 years ago." He responded quickly. "Are you finally ready?" I didn't reply. It wasn't that I was ready, it was that I had waited long enough. I was starting to understand Avery's game. She hadn't had an awakening. She had chosen to stand alone in the fire, just waiting for us to realize that she wasn't burning, she was fighting back. The question was, how much longer could she keep it up? When Jacob brought the old case file from 3 years ago to my office, his expression was complicated. He was wearing his usual gray suit, his tie loosened by half an inch, but his eyes carried something I didn't often see in him, some unspoken sense of guilt or pity. "Why did you stop the investigation?" he asked, placing the thick stack of papers in front of me. I stared at the name on the cover, Lily Hayes. Her photo was pinned to the first page. The scan was a little blurry, but I could still make out her features. Short hair, glasses, gentle eyes, and a subtle smile at the corner of her mouth. That face. I had seen it just a few days ago in an old photo from Avery's room. I slowly flipped open the file. The first page outlined Lily's family background and her university history. She was a first-generation college student who had earned a scholarship to attend the University of Vancouver. She had excellent grades, a quiet personality, and mild social anxiety. Avery had mentioned her once in her freshman year's final paper, referring to her as my quietest and most reliable friend. I had never actually read that paper. The second page detailed the events leading up to her downfall. She started taking leave from school, refusing to submit assignments, and went silent on her professors. A month later, the police found her journals and several unsent letters in her student apartment. One of the letters read, "I always thought he was the luckiest thing that ever happened to me. I didn't realize even luck could be fake. He borrowed all my money saying it was just temporary. I never thought about asking for it back. I just wanted to know if I was worth him staying for." The paper had visible tear stains. I closed the file, my fingers lingering on the cover for a moment. What was his name back then? "John Harris," Jacob said. "He also had a fake ID under James Holden." I scoffed. He couldn't even be bothered to change his name properly. At lunchtime, I didn't go to the company cafeteria. Instead, I opened my phone and searched the keywords James Holden and Avery Stone on social media. I wasn't expecting to find much, but the internet is a beast. It always works faster than you think. Soon a short video shot up the trending list. I clicked on it and saw a young man in a black t-shirt holding a phone up to the camera, the background a blurry screenshot of a PowerPoint presentation. "Do you remember this guy? He scammed my friend back in 2008, and now he's using a new name to continue his fraud. This time he's hooked the daughter of a tech queen, Avery Stone." The comments below exploded. "Oh my God, it's him again. How is he still out there?" I remember this case. When it first came out, there was no follow-up. I stared at the screen, scrolling through the comments line by line until I came across one with a screenshot. My own video from when I slapped Avery, captioned, "Grace Stone's daughter cries in public. Scammed, slapped, betrayed by the world." And the next comment was a photo of Maya. She was standing in my kitchen, wearing an apron, her hair in a loose low ponytail, smiling as she held a bowl of soup. "The air's already been changed. Why are you still crying for Avery?" I locked my phone and leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes. Avery hadn't clarified anything. She hadn't explained James's background, hadn't denied being love-struck, nor had she revealed the pieces of paper and recordings she had been investigating. She did nothing. She chose to let everyone believe she was still the uncontrollable rich girl, the foolish one who would do anything for a man. And now I finally understood. She didn't fail to see James for who he was. She was just waiting for him to show his true nature. She deliberately placed herself in the prey category on social media. She was the hunter all along, but she willingly crouched in the pit she dug for herself. Later that evening, Maya stood in the doorway of my study and knocked. "Are you working? Come in." She hesitated for a moment before walking over to my desk. "I went through her journal again today." "Which one?" "Lily's," she said. "The one she left for Avery." I looked up at Maya, and there was a sadness in her eyes I'd never seen before. She spoke softly. "She wrote something," she said. "Even if the whole world doesn't believe in Avery, I still do. Bad kids can change as long as someone stands by their side." I closed my eyes. In that moment, I felt like I heard a scale tipping inside my heart. I had thought Avery had become less and less like me, but now I realized she had always been learning from me. The only difference was her way was far lonelier. I opened my computer and wrote an email. The subject line was just one sentence. "Reopen the case on James Holden." The recipient was the head of the FBI's anti-fraud division. After sending it, I leaned back in my chair and stared at the city in the night. This time I didn't just want to protect her. I wanted to stand by her and end all of this together. At 10:04 p.m. that night, I received a call from an unknown number. The phone rang twice, but before I could answer, the caller hung up. 3 minutes later, a voice memo appeared in my inbox, with no text explanation and no sender name, just a string of meaningless characters that seemed to be from a temporary account. I opened the voice memo and I could hear faint night wind and footsteps. At first, James's deep voice came through. "Are you out of your mind? Do you have any idea how closely we're being watched right now?" "I have no choice, James." Avery's voice came through raspy like she had been crying. "I've sold everything I could. What else do you want from me? You can't go to your mom again. She's your last asset, Avery. She hates me." James paused for a second, then scoffed. "She doesn't hate you. She just hates that you're not like her, cold, hard, unbreakable. What you need to do now is just be a good little pawn, and stop playing the victimized daughter act." Then in the background, the sound of a car engine revving came through, as though James had stood up and walked away, leaving Avery alone in the wind, gasping for air. The recording ended. My finger hovered over the mouse, frozen for several seconds. What I hated most in this world wasn't being deceived. It was knowing someone was a monster, but still having to play along with the "I'm fine" act just to lure the monster out. The next day I called Jacob into my office. "I need someone to keep an eye on Avery," I said. He furrowed his brow. "Do you suspect she's up to something?" "I'm worried she won't say anything and try to handle it herself." I paused. "Maybe she thinks I really don't care about her anymore." Jacob stared at me for a few seconds as if he wanted to ask something but ultimately didn't. He simply nodded. "I'll have someone follow her, remotely track her, no interference. Also," I handed him the voice memo, "have the tech department analyze the origin of this account. If we can figure out who recorded it, that'd be great. If not, let's assume it's her doing." Jacob raised an eyebrow. "You're starting to trust her?" I looked at him, my voice calm. "I never said I didn't trust her." Avery suddenly disappeared in the following days. She didn't post anything on social media, and even James's account went silent. I asked Maya if she had heard anything, but she shook her head. The last time she talked to me was in the parking lot. She said she just wanted to calm down for a few days and would contact me later. "Was James there?" Maya nodded. "They said they were going on a trip, but didn't say where exactly." "How was her mood when she said that?" Maya thought for a moment. "Actually, it was kind of strange. She didn't seem anxious. She seemed like she was already preparing for something." I frowned and was about to ask more when the office phone rang. Jacob's voice came through, low and steady. "Her phone's location deviated from our set track early this morning." I immediately shot up from my chair. "Where to?" "South of the suburbs, near the abandoned warehouse area." My breath tightened. "Did she drive herself?" "No. She wasn't using her own car." Jacob's tone darkened. "It was a rental under James's name. Our tracker was removed, so we can only trace through indirect devices." I stood still for a second. "Is she still alive?" "We don't have any clear evidence she's in danger yet." I clenched my teeth, gripping the edge of my desk. "I'm going over there now." "Grace." Jacob's voice raised a bit. "You can't go alone. We both know she might be the bait." "If I don't go, she'll really become the bait," I said quietly, "and I'm not standing by again." At 7 p.m. I received a call from Maya. Grace, she contacted me. My heart skipped. What did she say? She didn't say much. Maya's voice was tight. She said she's preparing for the final step, told me not to come near. But I think no matter what, I need to go see her. I was about to advise her not to act impulsively, but Maya's voice shifted. She hung up the phone. She said quietly. But I saw her send a location. It's the last signal from her car. Grace, it's a warehouse James used to take her to. I know where it is. I don't feel good about this. Maya's tone held a trace of urgency. I'm going there tonight. I won't go inside, just watch from a distance. I pressed my fingers to my temples. No, I'm going with you. She paused. Do you trust me? I sighed. Right now, I can only trust you. That night, Maya and I drove in the car Jacob had arranged, heading toward the familiar yet desolate warehouse district. The cold wind howled through the broken walls, the tin roofs creaking like they were mocking anyone brave enough to come close. In the distance, yellowish lights flickered on, and we saw James's car parked in front of the warehouse. Beside it there was an unfamiliar van. Two figures moved back and forth, one tall, one medium-sized, their faces obscured. We parked 100 meters away, turned off all the lights and waited quietly. Maya watched the van and murmured, she really plans to bring them all out. I stared ahead, suddenly realizing that Avery's distress signal was never a scream, it was silence. The quieter she became, the more it meant she was ready to play her last card. This time she was acting and I would be her backstage. We no longer stood as a fractured mother and daughter. We were hunters. And hunters. I sat in the car with the window slightly cracked, the cold air creeping in and sending chills down my neck. Just moments ago I had received a call from James. His voice was tired, edgy, with a hint of undisguised threat. I know you've been tracking us, Grace. You'd better back off or neither of your daughters will make it out. I didn't reply. It seemed like he accepted my silence. You have money. What I want isn't much, $2 million in cash, bring it tonight. I'll send you the location. Don't call the cops, don't try any tricks. I paused for 2 seconds. I'll bring the money, but you have to let me hear Avery's voice first. There was silence on the other end as though he was weighing his options. Then I heard a faint breath, Avery's voice. Mom. Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. I'll try to hold them off. In that instant my breath caught in my throat. James grabbed the phone. Bring the money, Grace. Or just wait for the bodies to come back. The call ended. In the trunk, there was a metal box containing $200,000 in cash. On the outside it looked exactly like the real thing, but inside it was rigged with a tracking chip and remote audio sensors. Jacob and the special task force had already positioned themselves behind the warehouse, ready with everything from drones to ground tactical teams. Grace, Jacob's voice came through my earpiece. We're ready as soon as you make your move. I opened the car door and the cold air rushed in, filling the car. Maya grabbed my sleeve. Are you sure you can go in alone? I nodded. He only wants to see me. Because he doesn't believe I'll let Avery die. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I watched her hand slowly loosen its grip. I'll let him finish the show, I whispered. Wait for my signal. The metal door of the warehouse was already open, dim industrial lights hanging overhead, their flickering brightness almost unbearable. James was leaning against one of the supports inside, holding a metal rod, his other hand gripping Avery's shoulder, pressing her down onto a worn folding chair. The moment I stepped into the warehouse, James looked up and saw me. Grace. He smiled, that sickly smile that sent a chill down my spine. I'm so glad you came. What do you want? I stood firm, my voice unnervingly steady. An exchange. He took a step forward, his footsteps echoing on the concrete floor. You brought the money, I'll let her go. I raised my hand, pointing toward the door. It's in the car in the back seat. You can go check yourself. He didn't move. You think I'm that stupid? His tone grew cold. You come, the money comes, and who else comes with it, huh? I smiled faintly. You're questioning whether I love my daughter enough? His gaze flickered and suddenly he jerked Avery out of the chair, one arm locking around her neck, the other pulling out a folding knife and waving it dangerously near her neck. Say another word and I'll make sure she doesn't see tomorrow. I stared at him expressionlessly. You think you've won, I whispered, But from the moment you stepped into my house, you've already been dead." He froze. In that instant, the lights around the warehouse buzzed to life. The ventilation grates opened and a drone descended from the ceiling, its red dot aimed at James's neck. "FBI." A booming male voice echoed from the rear hallway. "Drop your weapons. Hands up. Get down on the ground." James's eyes flickered between panic and anger. He hadn't realized he wasn't the hunter, he was the prey. He shoved Avery aside, trying to escape through the side door, but a tactical officer had already leaped forward, knocking him to the ground and expertly cuffing his hands behind his back. Avery collapsed to the floor, gasping for air as if the tide had swallowed her. I rushed over to catch her. "Mom." Her voice trembled. "I almost. But you didn't. I'm here." I pulled her into my arms. "You've brought him this far. This round you've won." James continued to shout as they dragged him away. "You've been lying to me. This has all been a performance. You set me up." I stepped in front of him, watching his face twist with rage. "You'll never understand how far a woman can go. Especially when you hurt the ones she loves most." My tone was cold as the night wind. "But you won't have the chance to hurt anyone anymore." He tried to say more but was quickly shoved into the back of a police vehicle. At the entrance of the warehouse, the sky was starting to brighten. I held Avery and Maya stood beside us, her face still wet with tears but her eyes clear as glass. We stood in a line, watching the police cars drive away, as if the whole winter night was slowly fading away before us. "You know when I started doubting him?" Avery's voice was low. "When he didn't remember Lily," she said. "He said Lily was so ordinary he couldn't even remember what glasses she wore." I froze. Avery looked at me. Lily wore olive green half-rimmed glasses, the nose pads were worn down. She used to rest her chin in her right hand before studying, and twirl her pen with her left. "He's forgotten her completely." I nodded slowly. She closed her eyes for a moment, then whispered, "I didn't want her to die quietly like that." "It won't," I said softly. "From now on it won't." That night, as James was taken away, Boston experienced the first snowfall of the year. I sat in my office looking out the window at the vast white world. Jacob placed the preliminary report on the case on my desk and tapped the title on the first page. James Holden Case. Multiple Identities, Interstate Fraud, Property and Information Extortion Targeting Women. His voice was low. From Canada to the US, he's changed his identity at least 7 times, using relationships to steal over $1 million in assets. I nodded. "I know." Jacob paused, watching me. "But I didn't expect you had already set up this whole thing." I didn't respond, just turned to look out the window at the snow. "When did you decide to cooperate with her?" he asked. I took a long time to answer. When I recognized that the girl in the photo was Lily. That day, Maya had mistaken the photo for herself as a child and I hadn't corrected her. But I recognized it immediately. It wasn't Maya. It was Lily, Avery's most important friend from college, someone she had never truly said goodbye to. I had always thought Lily's death was the heaviest shadow in Avery's youth, but I never imagined it was the key to her awakening. She hadn't collapsed as I feared. On the contrary, she had shouldered the investigation, endured being misunderstood, and even intentionally made herself appear foolish in front of the cameras, just to make James believe she was completely trapped in love and had lost both her mother's trust and society's support. She had placed herself in the role of prey, waiting for the hunter to relax his guard. And I, at the moment she was about to jump into the fire, chose to reach out my hand and sit with her in the flames. We had never spoken the word alliance, but from that night on, we became the only allies we could rely on. The next morning, the police held a press conference summarizing the case. James Holden had been formally charged with financial fraud, identity forgery, extortion, and several other serious crimes, and would stand trial next month. I didn't attend the conference and neither did Avery. We sat together on the balcony at home. Maya had made hot cocoa and Avery and I each held a cup, a shared blanket draped over our knees. The snow fell gently on the railing, the sunlight just right. She looked at me and whispered, "Do you know what he asked me at the end?" I turned to her. "What?" She smiled, her eyes half cold, half sad. "He said, 'Didn't you already stop believing in me? Why are you still playing along?'" I took a sip of my cocoa, waiting for her to continue. I didn't answer him. I just wanted him to die never understanding. Women don't forgive out of stupidity. We collect the evidence for the final blow. I smiled softly. You know who you remind me of? Who? Me, I said. The kind of woman I wanted to be when I was younger. In the afternoon, Maya took out an old box, saying she had found it while helping Avery clean her room. The box wasn't large, sealed with clear tape, and inside was a stack of thick papers and a few yellowed diaries. The top page was a letter handwritten by Lily. Dear Avery, if one day the world feels too noisy and too bad, remember you're never alone. Even if you don't contact me anymore, even if you doubt yourself, the kindness you've given me will always be my best memory. Avery read the letter, her fingers trembling slightly as tears silently fell onto the ink. I didn't stop her from crying. She was crying because she no longer had to carry the I need to win shell. She could finally be a daughter, a friend, a woman who could move forward with her memories. At dusk, I received feedback from the police. James would face federal charges with a sentence of at least 20 years. I turned to Avery. Is there anything else you want to do for her? I asked. She nodded, her gaze clear. I want to set up a fund in her name. To help girls who have been controlled, deceived, and silenced. I smiled. Then let's do it together. She looked at me. Together. Of course. I nodded. Together. In May of the following year, spring seemed to arrive a little later than usual. The weather was unpredictable, the wind carrying the dampness of the harbor, as if the city was hesitating whether it should let people shed their coats. But the flags were already raised at the school entrance, with banners hanging between the red-brown academic buildings, students in graduation gowns laughing on the lawn. I sat in the second-to-last row of the audience, holding the ceremony schedule, her name printed on it. Avery Stone, Bachelor of Arts, Psychology, delayed graduation. Her name was placed second to last. She had deliberately chosen that spot. She said she didn't want to be the center of attention right from the start, nor did she want to overshadow the others at the end. She just wanted to quietly finish something that I never thought I could finish. When she walked out from the aisle beside the podium, wearing that deep blue graduation gown, her steps firm, her gaze clear, I almost didn't recognize her. This wasn't the girl who had stormed out of the boardroom, slamming doors and shouting. This wasn't the girl who had sobbed and screamed in front of the camera, the social media focal point. This was a woman who had truly weathered the storm. She knew when to be soft and when to be hard. After the ceremony, she found me in the crowd. When she took off her graduation cap, it was as if she had woken up from a long dream. She handed me a photo, one of her and Lily when they were little. The photo had been wrinkled but was now placed in a transparent sleeve. She always said the two of us would graduate together, Avery said softly. Now she's finally here. I looked down at the photo of the two girls, one lively and cheerful, the other shy and gentle. They were sitting on the steps of the library holding a thick stack of books, their faces pressed together, smiling. She should be so proud, I said. Avery nodded. So am I. She pulled out her phone, opened social media, and uploaded 2 photos. One of her holding her diploma, her back to the camera. The other the childhood photo with Lily. She wrote a caption. From first grade to graduation. We made it, Lily. A week later, the Lily Anti-Fraud Fund was officially established under our family trust. The first year, we allocated $500,000 as startup resources to provide legal consultations and psychological counseling for female victims. When the media came to interview me, they asked, "What message do you hope to convey with this fund?" I thought for a moment and said, "I just want to tell those who haven't escaped yet, not to be afraid. You're not alone." Summer came quickly. Maya stayed with us, and the company arranged for her to enter the internship rotation. She told me she wasn't sure if she would take over the company, but she wanted to give it a try. She asked me, "Do you regret adopting me?" I set down my teacup, looked her in the eyes, and answered seriously, "Never." She smiled, her smile like a freshly bloomed white flower. As for Avery, she moved to Cambridge, renting a small studio apartment across from Harvard. She said she wanted some peace and quiet for a while, planning to apply for graduate courses, focusing on social psychology and trauma recovery for women. "Are you finally done trying to prove yourself?" I asked her. She shrugged and laughed. Now the only thing I want to prove is that I belong to myself. A month later, the three of us drove to Lily's cemetery. Avery brought a bouquet of wild daisies. Maya brought a cake she made herself and I brought a letter. We stood in front of the tombstone for a long while. No tears, no loud words. We simply took turns sitting down, slowly telling her about everything that had happened over the past few months. At the end, Avery whispered, "We really graduated." Sometimes an ending isn't meant to make you forget. It's meant to allow you to finally face everything with a new identity. The girl who once clamored to become the heir had now become the master of her own life. The girl who was mocked as unwanted had now become the center of this family. And I, a mother who once thought she could control everything, had finally learned to let go, to trust, to wait. Because the best partnership has never been about one commanding the other. It's about each of us growing, and when the time comes, turning in unison, silently understanding what the other needs. We've all graduated. The two of them. And me.